Jesus said, "Think not that I have come to destroy the law or the prophets, but to fulfill. And neither one jot or tittle of the law shall be done away with." He was talking again about the civil law and the rites and rituals of Judaism. Jesus himself was accused of violating the Sabbath because he healed on the Sabbath. Jesus fed his disciples, plucked corn on the Sabbath, and fed them. So Jesus violated the letter of the law as understood by the Pharisees and the religious leaders of the day. One of the main expressions you'll find in the Sermon on the Mount, he said, "You've heard it said in old time, but I say unto you." He said, "You've heard it said in old time, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. But I say unto you, if someone smites thee on the right cheek, turn to him the other one also." Now, we can take that much too literally, as if a person could not defend himself under any circumstances. You know, if a woman is being raped, she has a right to defend herself. She certainly should cry out for help. If she doesn't cry out for help, I think the idea there was that, you know, maybe it wasn't actually rape. And so this was, you know, to protect men from being falsely accused of rape. But certainly, if it's a genuine rape, then she has the right, the responsibility to defend her virtue. If you see a child being attacked by a molester, you don't say, "Oh, you know, turn the other cheek, little boy, little girl, it'll all be over soon." You use what force necessary to stop them. And sometimes people like that won't be stopped until they're killed. And so when Jesus turned the other cheek, we need to understand that in its historical and cultural context. One of the, in the ancient Middle East, the way people would insult another, and I guess it's this way to a large extent today, to slap them in the face. Not with the purpose of knocking them out or actually doing physical injury, but to insult them. One of those cases, you know, you turn the other cheek. You don't have to respond in kind and curse them out or whatever. So Jesus gives us certain principles. Now in this debate, in the body of this debate at least, I'm not going to be able to have time to address every one of those issues that my opponent has brought up. I'm trying to give you some principles by which you can interpret the Bible. And the principle is, what does love require us to do in the particular circumstances? Jesus said, if you're going to be perfect, you have to love your enemy. Bless those that curse you. Do good to those who hate you. Pray for those who despitefully use you. If we're to love our enemy, if men would universally do that, well, there would be no more war. War would be done away with. But of course, men don't usually universally love their enemy. Most men don't. And as long as most men are like that, well, there's going to be war. And God will sometimes even order Israel to go to war and utterly destroy those who oppose him and oppose Israel. Jesus said, Moses permitted you to divorce your wives because of the hardness of your heart. But from the beginning, it was not that way. In the beginning, God wanted just one wife for one man without a divorce. Later, he permitted the patriarchs to have multiple wives. However, that was not what God ever really wanted. And so it is from the creation of man. God wanted Adam and his descendants to be free men. He had to give laws that he would prefer not to have given in order to maintain some semblance of order among a race of wicked rebels. You know, in an ideal society, it'd be nice not to have any prisons. And I don't believe it was ever part of the original plan of God to have prisons or have the death penalty for sin. He didn't want people sinning. But sometimes men violate the law. They murder and they forfeit their right to life. So we have to put them in prison, or perhaps we have to execute them. Not that that is what we really want. We want them to be law-abiding, peaceful citizens who respect the right to life and the right of property of everyone else. The law can be reduced by Paul to one word. He wrote in Romans 3, 8-10, "Owe no man anything but to love one another. For he that loveth another hath fulfilled the law. For this, thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not murder. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness. Thou shalt not covet. If there be any other commandment, it is briefly comprehended in the saying, namely, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Love works no ill to his neighbor. Therefore, love is the fulfilling of the law." I submit that the moral code of the Bible is good because rightly understood and applied, it promotes the highest good of all and works to prevent the highest misery of all. Conscience, reason, common sense, and history affirms the Bible code is for the universal benefit of both God and man. If we can agree that freedom is better than slavery, that peace is better than war, that health and wealth are better than sickness and poverty, then the Bible is an excellent moral guide. God's morality promotes freedom, peace, health, and prosperity. The Bible provides men with more than a code of ethics, like Hammurabi's law. We know little about the ruler Hammurabi. We know a lot about the life and teachings of Jesus Christ, who is our perfect example of a moral life. To have good morals, we must look to a person who is the ultimate example of good morals, which would be Almighty God, as He is revealed in His Son, Jesus Christ. What fault can you find in Him? We know that God governs the material universe with physical laws of cause and effect. God governs man according to moral laws. These moral laws are reflected in God's character. Without knowing God, one has an incomplete understanding of his moral obligation. If conscience and reason affirms that it is wrong for others to be selfish, then it is wrong for you to be selfish. You do not want anyone to be selfish towards you, so you should not be selfish towards others. In other words, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Men would need to study war no more if men would universally love their enemies. It is relatively easy to love those who love us. Men without God sometimes do that. I would even acknowledge that occasionally godless men give their lives for a friend or even stranger. But I've never heard of an atheist giving his life for a Christian. However, I have heard of many Christians who have been martyred for the sake of atheists, unbelievers, pagans, and idolaters. If we're going to reject the biblical standard, which has well served man for ages, then we must come up with one that is at least equal and better, or better, and one which has demonstrated itself to be equal or better for generations. What would my opponent suggest an alternative to God's moral law of love? That everyone lives selfishly and do his own thing? What basic list would my opponent come up with to replace the 10 Commandments? That parents are irrelevant, murder is permissible, forget about marriage, fidelity, if it feels good, do it? Who would my atheist opponent suggest as a better man to emulate than Jesus Christ? Darwin? Marx? Freud? Dawkins? Or perhaps he would prefer a woman, Madeline Murray O'Hara.